Throughout the mid-1800s, a pioneer spirit and the need to expand gripped the United States. As said by John O'Sullivan, a Democratic newspaperman, in 1845 it was our manifest destiny to overspread the continent allotted by Providence for the free development of our yearly multiplying millions. The accompanying pride, missionary zeal, and racist attitudes held by many expansionists, combined with the lures of economic prosperity, evangelism, and political balance offered by expanding westward. The southwest regions, like Texas, were of particular interest to Southern politicians who cunningly saw the opportunity to expand slavery and cotton cultivation without violating the terms of the Missouri Compromise.
The United States President at the time, James K. Polk, had his eyes trained westward. In 1845, he sent 3,500 troops to the Nueces River, then the southern border of Texas with Mexico, supposedly to protect the border, but all the while planning to take over Mexico, or at least its northern regions. Later that year, following the Mexican government's refusal to receive the United States envoy, an offer of $30 million for the Rio Grande border in Texas and the Mexican provinces of New Mexico and California, President Polk ordered the troops, led by General Zachary Taylor, south to the Rio Grande, in Mexican territory. In the aftermath of a small battle in this region in April 1846, Polk falsely declared, "Mexico has passed the boundary of the United States, has invaded our territory, and shed American blood upon American soil." Congress declared war on Mexico on May 13, 1846.
Back east, a divide on the mounting war quickly became apparent. In terms of political parties, Democrats showed the most support for the war, while Whigs tended to criticize it. But more and more people would join the opposition as the war progressed. 13,000 Americans died during the war, not to mention 50,000 Mexicans, and the country spent $97 million. Protests occurred across the country. The opinion that the war was merely a Southern design to expand slavery gained momentum, especially with Northern anti-slavery Whigs. The ongoing conflict gained the Whig nickname of Mr. Polk's War for both Polk's part in starting the war and for his close involvement in planning it, despite his complete lack of any military experience. Referring to the former, many people continued to refer to Polk's statement at the very outbreak of the conflict, that American blood had been shed on American soil, since the area where the skirmish occurred had actually taken place outside of U.S. territory. These insightful arguments were summarized in Abraham Lincoln's 1847 speech to the House of Representatives called Spot Resolutions. In his speech, Lincoln listed a number of criteria to be answered by the President in order to establish whether the particular spot on which the blood of our citizens was so shed was or was not at that time our own soil.
Breaking news! It's the news! Because of the technological advance of the telegraph, the Mexican-American War marked the first time in American history that news could quickly be relayed from the battlefield to the printing press. Newspapers, also known at the time as the penny press, were able to have reporters on location in the war. Because of this new format of journalism, people's perceptions of the war were now shaped by journalists rather than the opinions of politicians.
In the war itself, General Taylor moved south into Mexico, while General Stephen Kearny moved into New Mexico and California. New Mexico and California were secured by the U.S. in a relatively short time, by the end of 1846. Taylor gained fame for his victories in capturing the Mexican cities of Palo Alto in May and Monterrey in September of 1846. In February of 1847, his forces managed to fight off those of the infamous General Santa Anna at Buena Vista. In March of the same year, U.S. General Winfield Scott captured the coastal Mexican city of Veracruz. These successes spurred enthusiasm and patriotism, and marked the end of such easy victories in the long and costly war. 6 months of terrible fighting, suffering, and high casualty rates followed, and were worsened further by American soldiers committing what even Scott proclaimed to be atrocities to make heaven weep and every American Christian of Christian morals blush for his country, including murder, robbery, and rape. In September 1847, Scott and his troops took Mexico City, ending the war.
The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed on February 2nd, 1848. The treaty met Polk's terms for peace as conveyed by Nicholas Tris, a special American boy. As part of the agreement, Mexico accepted the Rio Grande as the southern border of Texas and ceded to the U.S. its northern provinces of California and New Mexico, which also includes Presidente, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and parts of Colorado. In return, the U.S. paid only $15 million to Mexico, notably half the amount offered for the same land before the war, and assumed roughly $2 million in claims against that nation. Upon receiving word of the treaty's provisions, and the ever-greedy Polk remained unsatisfied. Many expansionists, Polk among them, had taken up the call of all Mexico, clearly outlining their expectations for the outcome of the war. The political tensions of such a demand eventually convinced Polk to accept the treaty. Later in 1853, the U.S. bought the Gadsden purchased from Mexico for $10 million, primarily to enable the construction of a railroad. The 30,000 miles of arid land was hardly in accordance with Polk's demand at the end of the war.
In summary, the Mexican-American War was an unnecessary one, provoked primarily by the U.S. presidency to satisfy various expansionist motives. The grounds upon which it began were faulty, and the costs terrible.